Good evening. Thanks for being here tonight. It's so good to see you all here. My name is Karen Graff, and I am a board member of the Alcazar Theatre and a committee member of Women Making Change. So thank you for choosing to spend your time with us tonight and giving us the opportunity to provide quality entertainment and programming. We work hard at developing and offering the absolute best to our community and could not do it without your help and support. The Alcazar Theatre is a nonprofit with a hands-on board and lots of dedicated volunteers. We're grateful for the support that enables us to provide top-shelf programming for many decades to come. So I ask you now to join us. Join us in creating sustainability so we can continue to provide and bring events and programming to our community, and join us by donating to the Alcazar Theatre. So we are a responsible and forward-thinking organization, and again, we invite you to join us in bringing the very best in quality programming and entertainment to our community because Carpinteria deserves it. So thank you again, and enjoy tonight's panel discussion. And at this time, I'd like to invite Beth Cox to come up. She's kind of a celebrity, you know. So I'll just say, in case you didn't hear, which probably that's not possible, that this one was our 2020 Carpenter of the Year. For so many wonderful reasons, and we're so grateful for her and all her contributions, not only to what we're doing here at the theater, but to so many people in our community, just selflessly helping them. So we love you for that.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here this evening. We have an amazing panel ahead of us, powerful powerhouse women in cannabis. Carpinteria is kind of the cannabis capital of the world now. And we're so excited to have you ladies and powerful women here. So I missed my first meeting in Women Making Change, and I was told that I needed to fundraise for the Alcazar and Women Making Change movement, $25,000. So please make sure that you donate, because we're a little over halfway there, a little less than halfway. So Barry Brand, you're on the hook for sure. I missed my second meeting, and I was told I was chair. So don't miss meetings if you're on a committee. But thank you so much for being here tonight. Obviously, Alcazar really suffered through COVID, and Kim Gutierrez and all of these amazing women that came together with this program in a matter of a couple of weeks. It's just been such an incredible movement. I think we have over 450 people on our Facebook group, and it's just taken off in such momentum. I'd like to thank Melinda by Cannabis by the Sea is sponsoring this event tonight, so thank you so much to Cannabis by the Sea. And thank you so much. I have the great pleasure of introducing the incredible powerhouse. She is behind so much in this community and Women Making Change and all of your social media. She blew me up over this week on Facebook and every social media thing there was. Tina Fanucci Frontato, come on up and introduce our panel and our moderator. And Tina, I love you.
And again, Carpinterian of the Year, Beth Cox.
2020, I only got 10 minutes, just so you know. I got 10 minutes.
Still Carpinterian of the Year. Well, I'm going to reiterate again, thank you so much for finding some interest in tonight. This is really beyond a powerhouse of panelists. These are true trailblazers. These are women who have taken an industry that was not an industry, that had been demonized for decades upon decades, and brought it into the light of legalization, and then now, past, present, and future, turning it into a legitimate industry. To be able to get this panel here tonight is a miracle. It's a marijuana miracle that we have this panelist of women. We are short one. She got delayed in Chicago. She works for Cresco, so Sabrina Noah will not be with us tonight, but we will still have plenty of information. We have an opener. Let me tell you a little bit about our opener. She is a land use and water attorney. She's been practicing law for almost 20 years. She did not obviously come into law practicing cannabis because cannabis wasn't legal 20 years ago. And she actually, when she started first practicing cannabis law, she wasn't practicing cannabis law on our side. She was brought in by another entity and soonly realized that she was on the wrong side of the team. And she has then created space for all of the entrepreneurs in this industry to learn, to grow, to collaborate. And she is now one of the most sought-after advisors of legal cannabis, not in our county, but in California. So, Amy Steinfeld, please come to the stage.
Everyone, thank you so much for coming. I'm so honored to be here with so many powerful women in the industry. For those of you who have been on this journey with us for the past 4 years or so, you can attest that it's been a long one. So they say when you are in the cannabis industry, it's like dog years. So each year feels like at least 7. So I'm honored to have the privilege of representing so many of our incredible Santa Barbara County farmers. They have worked so hard to cultivate cannabis in this community. So we thought it would be really helpful to open up this panel with a little history about how incredible it is that we're here today, but also how far we have to go. So I want to kick off this event by just walking you through a brief history of the plant. So cannabis is not new. It's actually been cultivated by humans for almost 6,000 years, believe it or not. Even in the United States, it was cultivated in its hemp form pretty heavily in the 18th and 19th centuries, primarily for things like fiber and rope. So the word, just a fun little tidbit, canvas is actually related to cannabis. Hemp was also grown heavily along our coast at our missions in what is now present-day California. And in the 1850s, during the gold rush, Californians actually began using cannabis recreationally. Unfortunately, cannabis was actually the first state to outlaw cannabis in 1913. There was a wave of anti-narcotics legislation. And the word marijuana, which is not used in the industry, became common in the 1900s, really as a result of the anti-immigrant, anti-farm worker sentiment. Then, of course, in 1970, President Nixon started the war on drugs. His landmark legislation, which unfortunately has just devastated many communities, was, of course, the Controlled Substances Act. So why this is so key is it's been over 50 years that cannabis has been listed as a Schedule I drug. What that means legally is that Schedule I drugs, for example, the same classification as heroin, LSD, are deemed to have a high potential for abuse and no accepted medical use. So I think everyone here knows that those things have been proven wrong, but unfortunately this classification remains today. In response, in the 70s, actually 1972, California stood up and it attempted to legalize cannabis, but it was unsuccessful. California, though, couldn't be stopped. Many folks moved up to the Emerald Triangle to grow cannabis, and many of those legacy farmers continue growing today. Let's fast forward to 1996, the year I graduated cannabis high school. And it's actually interesting because California became the first state to legalize medical cannabis through Prop 215. Now, going forward, recreational cannabis, of course, was not legalized for another 20 years through Prop 64. And that made California the 5th state to legalize cannabis. However, there's one problem with Prop 64. It has a local control provision. So what that means is that counties and cities can decide whether they should completely ban cannabis or whether they want to regulate and allow the industry to open up and thrive within their borders. And so you're probably wondering, but that's why we have a patchwork quilt of regulations. That's why we don't see any dispensaries, for example, in the city of Carpinteria. However, the county of Santa Barbara has invited 6 dispensaries to open. City of Santa Barbara has 3 dispensaries. But what is really unique about the county of Santa Barbara is they opened up their doors to outdoor, indoor, and greenhouse-grown cannabis. So we have this incredible thriving market here, and it's just been so interesting to see what our progressive county has done. So with that, I think what's next, I wanted to touch upon federal legalization. So the Democrats are running out of time. Unfortunately, neither the Trump administration nor the Biden administration are big fans of the plant, and so that's why we haven't seen much movement. But luckily, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer is poised to introduce a cannabis legalization bill in April. I think the Dems fear, rightfully so, that they will likely lose the Senate this fall. And so they're going to try to push through some cannabis reform that hopefully is going to repair a lot of the damage that has been done to our communities of color. And there'll be provisions for expungement, social equity, and they will bring the plant into the light. So please reach out to your local representatives and push for federal cannabis reform. It's very important for all of our farmers here who are still dealing with some antiquated rules regarding inability to write off certain business expenses. And so legalizing cannabis federally is really the next step that our country needs to take. Thank you so much. And with that, I'm going to introduce one of my favorite people in the industry, Liz Rogan. Liz is a thought leader and a 15-year cannabis industry veteran. As you heard, much longer than I've been practicing. So in dog years, if anyone can do math, that is a very long time. She's a cannabis strategist and wellness consultant. She founded the Cannabis Business Council of Santa Barbara. She also served as the executive director of the American Academy of Cannabinoid Medicine. This research is very key. And also, before cannabis, she has a degree in wildlife biology and botany, so she is a true Renaissance woman. And she also is a cannabis news correspondent and a popular podcast guest. With that, Liz, can you come join us?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. And it is my honor to be the moderator of this panel of these amazing, powerful women who have made great change in our small community and making waves worldwide. So I'm just going to introduce them briefly, and you're going to get to know a lot more about them on stage. So I'm going to start today with Hannah Brand. Next up, we have Courtney Frazier. And next to the stage is Autumn Shelton. We have Diana Starr Langley. And Leah, I don't remember your last name. I'm so sorry. Amazing Leah from CARP. Thank you all for being here and taking time out of your busy schedule to. So tonight, I'm just gonna give you. There's gonna be 4 key takeaways for you to get out of this talk, and hopefully you'll have this. You'll have gotten all these takeaways, and we are gonna have questions at the end. So. First, I want to let you know that cannabis is a very challenging industry. It's male-dominated, and there are many barriers to entry. We're going to talk about a lot of those. With great fortitude and focus, women trailblazers are making change, opening the playing field for others and breaking the glass ceiling. Cannabis is very environmentally friendly. It's one of the most environmentally friendly crops in Santa Barbara County. And we encourage you to support female-owned businesses and brands. As you can see, this is very important. We're growing, and we thank you for that support as we continue with women making change. So this evening, we are going to follow the seed through the supply chain. And essentially, as you know, the seed it goes from seed to sale. So we begin on the path that the cannabis takes through the supply chain. So we start at the very beginning on the farm, at the cultivation site, where the magic of life begins. And it's the female plant that goes to grow, multiply, bloom, and provide us with a plethora of benefits, from clean air to supporting cancer treatment. So we're going to start right off with the cultivators on the farm. So Hannah, you grew up in the agricultural world and you've seen multiple crop changes. What are the main differences that you see between cannabis and other crops?
Hi, everyone. As you know, my name is Hannah. I grew up here in Carpinteria, and I got my degree from Cal Poly in San Luis Obispo for agriculture. So I grew up in the flower industry, cut flower industry, and we spent a lot of our time, especially during the Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, going in and working with my dad, running around the greenhouses, and really, being a family that steps up and works together. So that is why I chose my degree. Shortly after being accepted into Cal Poly and making the transition to a new town, the medical model of cannabis was brought to our family's attention and the transition started. So something that we kind of kept very private, but I got to explore certain questions vaguely to professors and start to understand this crop as I was getting my degree in ag science, specifically nursery production. So something that, going to school and learning something that you did physically, now with one plant, and you're going to come out of school and go do physically with a different plant, and you can kind of poke and prod questions to, was really fun and interesting to me. Also, from the sustainability side, this crop is so much cleaner than any other agriculture that I ever learned about or had the opportunity to work in. So it's really exciting to watch my brother, Johnny, who's the head grower, be able to use no chemicals for any of his sprays. The only thing we use is in the fertilizer. So that means no organic oils, no pesticides. It's all done by controlling our genetics, environment, and climate and throughout the grow.
So you guys, I think when I visited your greenhouse, you had some native insect populations. Autumn, you may be able to comment on that also. But
Hannah can start with it, though.
Yeah, so back when I started full-time, we did a little info video on our biocontrol, and we had these really cool ladybugs, and Johnny was quoted saying, "I don't know why they don't have spots, they just don't." And someone from UCSB reached out and was like, well, they don't have spots because they're California natives and they fly in naturally, lay their eggs, their larvae come out, and those eat up to 100 aphids a day, and then they'll pupate and fly around and lay their eggs where the next aphids are going to appear, even before the aphids are there.
Neat.
It's pretty amazing.
So what's it like being a woman on a farm? Do you find that you get the respect? Do you have to work a little harder to get that respect? Just what's your experience as a woman working probably around a lot more men?
I think we have more women on the farm than men. But yeah, on the farm, it's something where there are people working there that have been working with my dad and my grandpa before that. They've been here, they're going on, year 31 or 32? So they were around before I was here. But they got to watch my brother and I grow up and showing up and putting in work. And so there's never been an issue there. I think more so I do all of the bulk sales, so we bring in distributors and they come and check out product and do pricing and pickups and all of that stuff. So that's something where, I came fresh out of college, I own a business, and now I'm running bulk sales where it's kind of like you can't let people talk down to you or talk to you like you don't know what you're talking about, even if you don't. But you gotta keep going because you have a product that you're proud of and that your family and other partners have put so much work into that, you really have to stand by what you're saying and what you're making.
Oh, that's amazing. one last question for you. I know that, the cannabis, like water, is a huge topic in Santa Barbara County, period, in California. But can you touch upon the water usage by cannabis plants? And I've heard that you guys do these recapture systems and stuff. So one more part of the cannabis plant being really environmentally friendly and really compatible with our area.
Yeah, so we use the exact same amount of water that we use for cut flowers. There's been no change there. But one thing that my dad did install was a recapture system. So all of the rainwater from the entire farm, instead of just running straight from the roads or the dirt back into the creek, it's actually captured in an area, and then it filters through the ground back into the aqueduct. So it's getting filtered through dirt, through the ground, and then we actually pull up straight from the well and have really nice well water levels. There's low nitrates, and it's a really positive thing that's been impacting our property since 2007.
Wow, that's amazing. Amazing. Thank you, guys. So we're going to move on a little bit here down in the farm into Autumn. So Autumn obviously has had a large role in this. And so, Autumn, what profession did you work in before becoming a partner in this farm and brand? And how are you able to utilize those skills to help co-create Autumn brands?
I'm Autumn Shelton, the CFO of Autumn Brands, co-owner with one of my partners over here, Hannah. And, I graduated from UCSB, go Gauchos, with psychology and Italian. And at that point, I still didn't quite know what I wanted when I was going into college, figuring it out, but I always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And so my last year, I decided I want to go into real estate, so I started studying and became a real estate agent and then a broker a couple years later. The market crashed, so I ended up leaving and starting my own business and doing foreclosed properties, had an REO business. It was pretty hard to do that on my own, and today I realize how important partners are, so I'm so grateful for having such amazing partners and trying to go at something on my own back then in my 20s. But real estate was always what kind of led me to this point, so I always had some type of real estate position, whether it was an agent, broker, or real estate development. I ended up working for Santa Barbara Bank and Trust and managing their whole commercial and residential portfolio for foreclosed properties during that time as well. That really kind of helped me build my cost analysis. And all my jobs and that had led me, and I took off traveling a couple times for a couple years as well in between. I'm really good at problem solving, strategic planning, and cost analysis, which has really kind of led me to this point, and which is why one of my partners, Hans Brand, really saw that in me when I was working for him in his cut flower business. And, we were able to create this incredible partnership at Autumn Brands with the four of us, with Hans and Hannah and Johnny. I'm so grateful for where we started and where we are today, because it's been a really hard but incredible journey to get to this point.
Wow, that is amazing. So obviously with your background in knowing how to deal with real estate and finances, period. So can you tell us about some of the challenges that the cannabis industry faces? At first, let's start in regards to banking.
Banking is still an issue in this industry. We are very fortunate enough that about, I think 3 years ago at this point, we were able to get a bank account, a real bank account. It took about 6 months of doing really solid due diligence with the bank and compliance, proving that we were legitimate. So we today are one of the very fortunate few that still have banking, but we can't have a credit card. Actually, American Express approached us at one point and said, as long as you're not buying cannabis with it, you can have a credit card. And then 6 months later, they took it away. And I was like, So, we're really looking for an opportunity here with the Safe Banking Act that still continues through Congress and the legislature to get passed. But you can't get loans, you can't do much. But fortunately for us, most of the people that we work with do have banking at this point, but operating in a cash business for many years and having to deal with that and the costs associated with that and trying to get into a bank even when you have a bank account is pretty tremendous.
Ooh, and I know, speaking about another really fun topic, kidding, in our industry is taxes. And so I'm sure you came with dealing with real estate taxes, and then moving on to cannabis taxes must be a whole new ball of wax. So obviously, you probably know that taxation is a major problem for our industry right now. Autumn, do you want to shed a little light on that?
Sure. Well, California is one of the highest tax states just generally, right? But in cannabis, they decided to take advantage of this situation, and so they implemented a cultivation tax. So every cultivator is taxed before you transfer it to distributor, and it's a flat tax. And so when this originally occurred, it was already an issue. This was already a problem that we were kind of trying to make change. And then last summer, I don't know if you all know that the cannabis industry market pretty much crashed. We have a surplus of product because we have a lack of dispensaries and more cultivators coming on the market than what can be sold. In the legal market, there's still a surplus of the illicit market going on. So it's not that there's not the consumer out there, it's just the way to get it to them. And that's because taxes are so high. So then at the dispensary level, there's a 15% excise tax, plus there's a sales tax on top of it, depending on where you live. So that goes anywhere from 7 to 10% as well. And so so the state tax at the dispensary level is taxed on top of a tax on top of a tax. And then also because we are still federally illegal, there's a tax code called 280E that doesn't allow us to deduct normal expenses. So we deal with many challenges with taxation, and now that the market has crashed and the prices are a fraction of what they used to be, there are many farmers that are just going out of business, shutting their doors. There's just not, they can't exist any longer. It went from, the state tax was probably around 15 to 20% previously, now it's anywhere from 35 to 100%. And so we're really hoping Gavin Newsom seems to be, in favor of it, that we'll get some action happening this year, that the cultivation tax will be eliminated at some point. But otherwise, I don't think this industry will continue to survive.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a great summary of a very complicated topic. Just want to touch on one more thing before we move along in our supply chain, because we've talked about being the farm and environmentally, and I know Amy could speak a lot about this also, but compliance, obviously, to get your license is an enormous, enormous hurdle that we've seen a lot of appeals and a lot of challenges. I'm sure people in this room and have just heard, it's been a very challenging process. I know Santa Barbara has, I think, 17 agencies that you have to work with. So can you tell us a little bit about that process, like what is actually required, and how are you guys, being aware of your neighbors and other people?
Sure, I'll try to be quick. It's quite a long topic. But so we started in the collective model days and then transitioned to the regulated market. So we're very much a part of the state regulations and the county ordinance, and really kind of helping build that and show how our workflow happens. And even currently today, this last Wednesday, we actually had the director of the Department of Cannabis Control and Metric, which is the state's track and trace team, come out to our farm, and all their compliance team, and they're still learning how our type of farms really function, because the way that the system was more built on was much smaller farms, and not really understanding how the compliance needs to kind of flow. And so in the beginning, we had to, at the state level, go through numerous agencies: Fish and Wildlife, State Water Board, Department of Cannabis, California Department of Food and Agriculture, the Bureau of Cannabis. Now they've transitioned into the Department of Cannabis Control. And now at the county level, we've all, luckily, many of us who were growing prior to 2016, we were able to get grandfathered in and continue to cultivate through the process. But it took 2.5, 3 years now to get through this process. And it was tremendous. And then you also have, the groups that are opposed to cannabis, and so trying to really educate and help them understand what we're going through and how challenging this really is. So the compliance aspect of it is daily, and what we have to go through to really stay in compliance. But we're business people. We're here for the long run. We're here to do this right, and it's really hard to take a plant that's been illegal for so long and make it right. But by doing the right thing and being a part of the process, and communicating with them about what works and what doesn't work has been really key.
Wow. Thank you, Autumn. That was amazing. We're going to move along down the supply chain just a little here, and we're going to talk to Diana Starr Langley.
Hi, Liz.
So as we move along with our cannabis flower, that brings us to your place. You turn the cannabis oils into a plethora of infused products, from gummies, tinctures, drink additives, and much more. So Diana, we'd love to hear a little bit about your business, and also what industry did you come from before, and what drew you to work in the cannabis industry?
Well, thanks, Liz. I'm sorry, you're not going to hear a lot from me tonight, so you're lucky. As Tina said, this is my sexy voice, but it's, we'll see. I grew up in the Midwest, and I'm the serial entrepreneur like Autumn is. Third grade was asparagus with ladybugs. So I am a ladybug freak now. Have lots of stuffed ladybugs. And I think there's something in people, if they know that they're, as a kid, you don't go, oh, I'm an entrepreneur. You just kept starting new little companies, and it didn't matter if they were good or bad or indifferent, and your parents' friends bought your product, and you learned a lot in those days. So I went to University of Michigan Business School, and then I came out to California when I was in my mid-20s and started a medical manufacturing company. So we manufactured medical goods and surgical implants for cataract surgery, and then I'm known for ugly sunglasses. So all those sunglasses that you wear after cataract surgery, those are mine. That 45 years later, the brand is still around. It's owned by Foster Grant now. I know, isn't that cool? It's so fun to walk into stores and see people with them on. So I had not smoked since college. And in Ann Arbor, pot was legal. It was a $5 fine. And so, and every May 1st, they had a hash bash on the diag of the university, and it still goes on today, I understand.
Yeah.
So,
They do.
yeah.
I just read about it.
Yeah, so it was just one of those things. I started there in 1970, and so while I was there, it was just a part of, but I was one of those kids that had to work a lot, so I didn't smoke a lot. But I always say, here we're so careful about our flower now, and back then we smoked the sticks, and it had mold on it, and none of us died. So, but. So it's a different product today, and it's a different strength today, too. So I wasn't like I was yearning to get in the business. But I think, when I got in medicine, I was one of the very first women in medicine, and I had to testify in front of the FDA, and, they almost laughed me off the panel. And in the end, I was right. But it didn't matter. I was too young, and I was too female to make a difference. So in those days, what I did was I just hired a lot of doctors to talk for me, and that made all the difference in the world, because it was definitely a male-dominated industry. But I might have known 3 female ophthalmologists back in those days in the 80s. So fast forward, there's a gentleman by the name of Kailyn Baird. Kailyn and my daughter went to high school together, and I used to drive him to school once in a while and pick him up. And fast forward to 4 years ago, I was thinking about investing in a grow. And Kailyn had 10 years of experience. He's 36 now, so he was 32 then. And he had a lot of experience in growing in the co-ops and things, teaching people how to do that. And so he said, no, don't invest in a grow. I said, okay, well, this really intrigues me. Everything I'd learned while I was researching it intrigued me, that it was that same cutting edge that I was in ophthalmology. And that was the intriguing part. And I wanted one last hurrah. So we talked for about 4 hours and talked about what part of the industry we wanted to be in. And we literally analyzed together every single area, from consulting, everything but law. No, I didn't do that one. But from consulting to dispensaries to, marketing to all kinds of things. And at first I thought sales and marketing is my background. That's what it will do. But he said, but your background's manufacturing. And we started talking about it. We said, let's try this. We were lucky enough to find the only people in Goleta that would, and my landlord is here, the only people in Goleta that would rent us a building. And it is just the cutest little building in the whole world. We have a lab, in essence. And really early on, this was 4 years ago, Kailyn decided that he wanted to explore nanotechnology. And nanotechnology is what the pharmaceutical industry uses to make, like if you took a pain med, you don't want to wait an hour for it to kick in. And that's how we feel about cannabis. That there's too many bad stories about people who didn't wait long enough and had a second and third bite. And everybody has one of those stories. So he started really researching it. It took us 18 months to get our license in Goleta. They had told us it would be 2 to 3 months. It was 18 months. But during that time, we practiced. And we practiced making a lot of CBD products. And so it was not wasted time in the least. We really perfected. Neither of us knew how to make gummies. I knew how to make surgical implants. I didn't know how to make gummies. But we made gummies and chocolates and tinctures and balms and just about everything. We made some powder for a pizza the other day that somebody wants to put it in pizza crust. So, I mean, it's just, so we really fine-tuned our technology, and we're one of the 3 major nano companies in California. So I always say Kailyn's the smart one and I'm the wise one, since I'm twice his age, right? So, but it's a good partnership. You know, he is just the most amazing young man. And I think picking good partners can either make or break you. We're 4 years in. We manufacture for a lot of big companies. We manufacture for a lot of people that are wanting to chase their dream. They want a brand. They want to be in the industry. They've got, usually there's a reason. There's somebody in their family that got helped. There's somebody in their family that had cancer, and that cannabis was a major part of all that. So everybody's kind of got a story of why they end up coming to us. And we end up having, I'll bet you 70% of our clients are women. Now, women are probably more entrepreneurish in this industry. So maybe that's part of it, do you think?
Well, we're one of your clients.
Well, I know you are. Yeah. And she's one of my clients. So, I mean, we're lucky that the locals support local, which is nice. But hopefully they'd pick us even if we were in LA, but I don't know. Anyway, I don't know. I don't know what our exit is right now. We're loving what we're doing. We're starting to roll out in other states. We decided to take our technology and make a product called Splash Nano, which is just liquid cannabis. So it's no flavor, no nothing. You just throw it in a drink, throw it in an IPA, and you microdose, over the next course of the next half hour or an hour. So that's our only brand, because we don't want to compete with our clients. So it's the only brand we make for ourselves.
What a neat. Thank you. What a neat story. These are all so amazing. So mentioning that you've, created this amazing nanotechnology product that you're sharing. So what can you share with us about innovation in IP? It seems that with the industry, IP is becoming huge value now. So what do you see as the future in that changing? We had to debate this early on, because we said, are we going to try and patent our technology? And, I own patents, and I don't feel that they had a lot of value. I think if it's $1 billion idea, then it's worth defending. But whenever I speak to business schools and things, I always say, if you don't have, $1 million to put in the bank to defend it, don't bother patenting it if you're not going to defend it. So we decided not to do that. We decided to go more the trademark route with our name. And we are constantly, and it's good because we're constantly innovating. We're constantly changing. There's not one, there's a different nano for gummies than there is for chocolates. And, so it's because of that, Kailyn is he's constantly working on, how do I make it, nano shorter acting? How do I make it fast acting? And that's
kind of what nano means. It's fast acting, but how do I make it also last longer so you stay asleep? And he's working on those kinds of things where it's a dual, action kind of product. So I think we'll keep doing that. As I said, we're trying to roll out in other states, and that IP is something that we can teach them how to make nano, and use that to get Splash and our other House of Brands products in other states.
Excellent. Thank you. So we're going to move down just a little further as we move with our cannabis plant here, still tracking ourselves with our metric number as our seed to sale, and we are at the dispensary. So we are with Leah, who's going to take great care of us. So we're following the flowers and the gummies to the retail dispensary, where they will be purchased for medical patients and consenting adults. You can also choose to have your cannabis products delivered to your home by a cannabis delivery service. And this is the last step in the cannabis supply chains, but it still comes with many challenges. So Leah, let you introduce yourself. She's the manager of the pharmacy, but there's so much more to her than that. And I'd just love to know a little bit about your job and what industry did you come from before and what drew you to work in the cannabis industry?
So my name is Leah Aloha, kale, another leafy green, spelled a little bit differently. I previously worked in the vacation rental industry and ran a business for about 10 years here in town. And it was also similar in that it's also kind of in a legal gray area where short-term vacation rentals were allowed somewhat if there were no complaints. We collected and submitted transient occupancy tax like the hotels do. And as long as, we ran a very reputable business, but if someone didn't like the idea, they could file a complaint and effectively shut the homeowners down. So it was a kind of an introduction to what we experience a little bit in the cannabis industry. And certainly with social media, Instagram in particular, we've had our accounts deleted several times now, and really no rhyme or reason for it. Sometimes, it's about community guidelines. There's nobody that you can talk to about it. There's, not much that you can do about it. We just had a post removed last week that was celebrating a female colleague of mine, and just celebrating her for being her impact as a Black-owned business owner, and it was taken down, and there's really not much that you can do about it. So you have to tread softly and be resilient and creative. And really, just kind of go with the flow and roll with the punches.
We always say our middle name is Pivot.
You got to be scrappy.
Yeah, those are the perfect adjectives to be able to. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about what your role is now, and what's that like being a woman, being a manager, and what's your experience with customers and with employees?
So in 2019, we opened the first adult use licensed cannabis dispensary in Santa Barbara, the pharmacy. And that was a really fun and exciting and journey. There was a lot of love that was poured into that place. And I think it shows, and you feel it when you walk inside. And that was monumental, and we opened in August, and then COVID hit shortly after in March, and we had to pivot the model a little bit. Business increased, so it was, staffing went down and business went up, and so there's challenges that come with that as well. But again, that's where the resilience comes into play. I have a great staff and a lot of people who have been with me since the beginning, a lot of young women who are finding a home and a career trajectory, and that's probably one of my favorite things, is just being able to help them in in their careers and in their future. That's a wonderful gift that we get to do. It's as a woman in the industry, it's challenging in its own ways for my employees. I think they have to work a little bit harder to gain the respect of a lot of male customers who would prefer to get the suggestions from a male counterpart, even though their experience and their knowledge runs really deep. We take training really seriously, and everyone's very passionate about the plant. So I think that's something that will continue to change as the industry evolves and matures, but it definitely tests you a little bit.
That's amazing. So in terms of products that you guys carry that are from women brands and just even the focus on women, I know the industry we know has pivoted more towards a focus on women. Women make 85% head of household purchasing decisions. So what do you see in transition of brands and of even the customer contingent? Do you feel like there's a lot of women who are customers, and do you feel like the brands are serving them?
Yeah, I would say that probably 35% of our customer base are women, and I have been really enjoying seeing all of the not only female-focused branding coming out, which I think is really exciting, but then also brands that are cater entirely to women's health. There is Hello Again and Cosmic View and Quim, just to name a few. So I think that is something that is still kind of growing, but that we will see more of it. And as there is more demand, certainly there will be growth in that sector. And as consumers, you all have a lot of control and influence over what's on the shelves. So when you go to a dispensary, ask what the women-owned brands are and make those selections. And if you don't see something, ask for them. You do have influence over that. So it's a good thing to know.
I heard you mention, I think, that you curate a certain area of your store that's all women-owned products, women brands?
Yeah, we have a whole shelf space that is dedicated entirely to women-owned brands, and it's a very full shelf. So that's exciting to see. Yeah.
One thing that's great also is really seeing how with research, we're really seeing a lot of movement forward and finding a lot of benefits with cannabis for women, women-focused problems like hormones and other things. So it's really neat to see, I think, how the female plant and healing is really resonating through. And I hope we continue to see more of that. Do you have any insight on, you're obviously dealing with a cash-based business for the most part, I think due to banking issues, or maybe not. Would you care to expand on any of the challenges you have as a retail dispensary with cannabis tax, cannabis money, banking?
Yeah, we can't take credit cards. It's all federally regulated. People want to use Apple Pay and don't really understand, what we deal with in the cannabis industry and how limited we are. There are workarounds with ACH and PIN debit, but none of them are very graceful. And certainly there is a lack of ease in every transaction. So there's a bit of a learning curve for customers who are accustomed to paying for everything with a card in a certain way. So that's challenging. Taxes, like Autumn mentioned, challenging as well. You have the excise tax and the city tax and then the sales tax all compounded. And, particularly in places like LA where you don't necessarily, if you don't look, you won't really see the difference between a licensed dispensary and an unlicensed dispensary. You have to look for the license. You have to look for a QR code. But you don't have to look very far to see that it's 35% difference in price. So for those licensed operators, it's really hard to survive and make it. So those are all challenges that we deal with in retail.
Thank you. And one last thing I wanted to touch on is you'd mentioned this in the beginning is some of the challenges with advertising and brands like on social media kind of putting out there that you're, having sales and other things. And I'm sure, brands that you work with also have those challenges. Do you have any tips to, or I guess any comments, insight on that, any tips? Can you give us kind of the lowdown on what the general challenges are with advertising?
We've had to pivot in how we approach social media. It is more of lifestyle kind of branding exercises and community and cultural, but we can't really be promotional in any way. So it's limiting, but the things that are really important we can still talk about. It just really limits what you can say and what you can post. And, with collaborations with different brands and partnerships, you want to shout it out and you want to help them and you want to promote them. And there's really only so much you can do online. You can do a lot in store, but there isn't much that you can do in the online realm, which is unfortunate. But yeah, I'm not sure when that's going to end.
Thank you. Yeah, yet another challenge in our industry. So on that, thank you. So I want to move along here to Courtney Frazier. She has worked in dispensaries, so I'm sure you have insight on a lot of these things we've just discussed. But also moving along to look at the community, because Courtney is, really strong community leader. And so I wanted to hear a little bit from you, because tell us about what does your job entail? What do you what do you do, and what do you see in these dispensaries as like women products, being a woman, and your insight on that?
Thank you. Like she said, I'm Courtney Frazier. Thank you so much. I appreciate you telling me that I'm a leader in the industry, or in the cannabis industry. I really appreciate that because I've been in hiding for the last few years because of what I do professionally. My past is working with the youth, actually, in Carpinteria, so this is like a super full circle moment for me. I actually used to be a director at the Carpinteria Boys and Girls Clubs for many years, and thank you so much. I love the kids. I'm really happy to see some, youth here in the room, just being able to be in this atmosphere. I think it's, important for our future. But in development, I currently am actually the development director for a mental health facility called New Beginnings Counseling Center. And we work in mental health, giving people free and low-cost access to counseling. We also provide the safe parking program. So mental health is really what I focus on in the community. And when we talk about healing community and being a part, I think cannabis needs to be at that table. So to kind of talk about my past dealing with the nonprofits, it kind of drove me crazy. I'll be honest with you. If you work in the nonprofit industry, you get it. But it's hard. In Santa Barbara County, we have a lot of nonprofits. We want to do this amazing work. But what I realized, especially being a Black woman working in these spaces, is I was putting myself in a lot of harm's way, a lot of times with different verbiage and how we talk about communities, how we pay respect to different communities. And so by taking a little pause, a career break, and focusing on myself, it was cannabis that saved me, oddly, or not oddly, if you know. And in that career break, I went and worked at a dispensary. Later on, realizing that dispensary is one of the fastest growing dispensaries in the state, and I could really utilize my background and my skills to be very helpful in sales, and then also in bringing in community, and realizing what my strengths were. In communicating cannabis in a way that my community and the people that needed it could understand. And so I was a bud tender working $15 an hour. I'm gonna just put that out there. $15 an hour in Santa Barbara, okay? And so it was a shock, and I really wanted it to be like a cannabis college experience. I wasn't sure what to expect, wasn't sure what was happening, but what I knew is that I had these really great skills and how I could maybe heal or help and give great advice. I was there for over a year. And I realized with all these great, amazing skills that I was not ever going to be promoted. ever. And that there were a lot of men that had a play in that. And I don't know why. You know, you never know why. And I don't want to make assumptions about different things. What I want to do is be a powerful leader in my community and continue to be positive and move forward and speak on the things that I think deserve to be spoken about. So what I started to do is I just sat back and just started looking and really taking notes on different products that were in the room, different people in the community who were coming in, different people that were being promoted, looking at the board, seeing that the board looked nothing like me, investors looked nothing like me. I was the only Black bud tender at any of the locations that this specific dispensary had. And so just realizing what impact that made on the people around me and then also the people who are coming in to see me, I realized. And so after that, I started a small initiative called Black and SB Cannabis because thank you. Thank you. I got very tired. I moved here from Chicago about 10 years ago to Carp for the really most beautiful experience. I absolutely love this city, and it taught me a lot about the way people work here, about locals loving locals, and just about the actual support that we have and how we move. And so with that, I realized that in the cannabis industry, I didn't really feel like anyone was talking to me or talking to my friends or, you know, the people who were wanting to consult with me, whether it be for medical reasons or recreational reasons, whether that be for starting a business, how to get a license, how to get into the industry, even if it was just being a bud tender, maybe taking a tour of different grows, you know, so that the community can start to understand what this looks like. Because as we continue to bring in products and are, you know, growing all this great weed and doing all these great things, I do really feel like our community, like Leah was saying, you all have a lot of purchasing power. You have a lot of power, and that's really what I want to show the community, is that they don't just have power in the way they consume, but also in the way that they create and the way that they spend, you know, they are in this community. So for instance, I would love to see more indigenous brands here in Santa Barbara. We're growing on Chumash land and not giving back to different organizations. There are other Black-led, Brown-led organizations who are doing really great work, and I just think by us supporting them in the cannabis community, it's a different way to communicate what's actually happening. So just remember not to leave the community behind. And I think with the dispensaries, thank you, Leah. Leah's been an amazing support of me and some of the work that I'm doing, the pharmacy as a whole. But outside of all the development work, I also I sell legally with a few women-owned brands. And I specifically choose to work with Black-owned brands and women-owned brands to bring a little more visibility than all the other brands, as much as they get. I realize that with purchasing and with the dispensaries, if you just give them a little shelf space, they've done all the work. They've done the branding, the licensing. They've crawled past all the war on drugs, the social equity, they've crawled through. So if we could just give them a little space and have the community participate and purchase, you never know what can happen. But if you gatekeep and you don't allow, then you never know. Or we already know, I guess we should say, we see what's happened. So yeah, that's kind of like, that's really what I'm doing now, is like selling for women-owned brands for the most part. So the Garden Society is one of them, and then also the Dose of Saucy, which is an infused barbecue sauce. So, you know, we're moving through food, we're trying to do something innovative and interesting, but it's not easy. It's like not, I guess I didn't realize how much everyone else did it on their own, because I thought I was crazy. I thought I was crazy, but I probably am a little bit. But to do this work and to do it alone, it's hard. It's really hard. So a lot of times I'm speaking on things that make people very uncomfortable. But I don't care because I've been uncomfortable in this industry every day. So the more that we can just have these conversations, keep the door open, really be speaking on, the true people who are growing our weed, and what that looks like in the future for them, not just entry-level positions, but just opening up this industry more. Santa Barbara, we grow a lot of weed. We grow the most, and we don't talk about it.
That brings me to the next question I wanted to ask you is about, we know that with cannabis, so many people have been locked up, and people are still doing time in jail while people are sitting outside smoking cannabis, which is amazing for us, but not for them. So I know that you have taken a role in helping, I believe, some clinics you had that were, and then can you kind of tell us a little bit about that, and what's it like for people who have been arrested or incarcerated before? Can they work in the cannabis industry?
Yes and no. There's a little bit to it, but that is something also that I realized working in the dispensary, because I worked there in 2020 and I was now an essential worker. So that really hit me like a truck when I started realizing that you could just get your weed brought out to you on the corner. When there are over 40,000, thousands and thousands of people who are still in jail today in the state of California, not just in the nation or down south, in California. So as much privilege we have living here on this beach, growing this amazing weed, I hate to be the bearer of the bad news, but we have to do something to give back. And so what I've started to accumulate, if anyone here would, like to join in, anyone else in the industry, is a way that we can start to look at programs that are here in Santa Barbara that are already doing the reentry work. I find that a lot of the dispensaries don't have a true connection to their community, so they'll Google who's the biggest doing the work. And I appreciate that the money goes back, but there are nonprofits right here in Santa Barbara that are doing reentry work. And I think that we can start here. $1,000 to $10,000 for us that work in the nonprofit, it's organization change. So the more that we can, just put together our ideas. I've noticed, what the carp growers are able to do in raising money. And I think that, us with products, us that lead the dispensaries, lead these cultivation areas, I think, Santa Barbara County just has a really huge entryway to make a lot of change, to lead a lot of change in California, and not just be the cool on the beach, but, show the other counties really how it's done.
So what skills do you find are needed to work in a position as a community organizer and leader within your community, for other women who are interested in doing that same role?
Guts. That's honestly it. Being in development and being in these spaces, I don't have a huge brand. I don't have a lot of help. Just you find the people who line up right next to you when you stand at battle, and you hope that they got your back. You hope that they got your back. Just passion. That's it. That's all. I don't have a license. I don't have a brand. What I saw is that my skills and the way that I can encourage and maybe support the next people, the next generation. I think there's enough people out there doing brands. There's enough people out there doing that. How can some of us who have these other sales skills, a lot of us work corporately, doing HR, doing accounting, doing all of those skills translate. I say infuse those skills and come on over to the cannabis side, because also why I kind of use my labor, my emotional labor, to help support some of these Black-owned and brown-owned brands is because their budgets aren't as big as some of these other places. So in order to have success, you need skilled people on your team, not just kids or not, they want to help, but we need to make sales. We need to make real money. So if you have, an area in that background, come on over. Come on over. Yeah,
Thank you.
Help the next generation. It's not about us. I think we all realize that we're doing something for the next people.
Thank you. True trailblazers. So just to wrap this up, I know, Autumn, you are the president of the Carp Growers. So did you want to give us any other insight on, how much cannabis helps the community and what the collaboration of growers and these businesses working together has helped bring to our community?
Carp Growers has been an amazing association since it was founded, and the core of what we do is to give back to our community and our local community and everything that we can do, and the other part is educating about cannabis. So it's been my great honor to be president over the last year of Carp Growers, and really being able to always, be at the forefront to give back and to raise funds and do whatever we can, because the community is everything. Even in a struggling time, it's always important to give back. And Hans has taught me that no matter what, the community is number one, and being a part of it. And so Carp Growers, we all the members, there's about 10 member farms that encompass about 23 properties in Carpinteria, and we all work together and we all collaborate, and that is our number one goal, is to really be a part of this community, be good neighbors, and help support it in any way that we can.
Thank you so much. As you can see, this is I'm accompanied on stage here by an amazing group of women who are blazing the way, this trail, this path for others to follow. And there's still so much room for innovation and everyone to bring their skills to the table. So at this point, I would like to, if there's anyone who'd like to bring up any other topics that are important, or if you guys have questions, we'd love to welcome your questions.
That's certainly one of our major problems, is the illicit market. It continues to thrive, and I know that they've used some of these tax dollars to combat the illicit market, but we still struggle in LA with dispensaries that aren't legal. And as Leah was saying, you have to really pay attention. Is there that QR code in the window and that license in the window? So yeah, unfortunately, they talk about it and they go after it, but it's still there, and it's still blatantly there. So it's understandable, if it's hidden behind, up in Humboldt and out in, out in the deep, and you can't really find it. But there is still a lot of work that needs to be done, and the state of California has made a lot of money on the cannabis industry through taxation. So I think that's still about 2/3 of the cannabis market is the illicit market, and only 1/3 is still legal. And part of that is the illicit. Part of it is not them really being able to control it, but the other part is so many municipalities not legalizing cannabis, not allowing dispensaries throughout. And so that is another huge problem. And so it's a really important thing, that in different communities, including Carpinteria, that we allow dispensaries. And dispensaries are not a terrible thing. They are a place where people get their medicine. They're also a place where people get their cannabis so they can just feel good at the end of a day, and that's okay. But it's, educating children so they don't go into those. Same with a liquor store, same with going to a bar. It's all about education. So I think everything can be done responsibly, and really being open to allowing dispensaries, throughout the state of California in your community is a really positive thing.
It's also more than education that prevents kids from going into dispensaries. You have to have an ID that shows you're 21, you get scanned in. It's much harder than it is to sneak into a bar.
Right. Thank you.
If there's a community outreach, I think we need to put way more pressure on the administration
to go after. I mean, they're in the east, they're in the desert, there's so much illegal grow that if we don't yell at Newsom and his people, then they're just going to stay in the illicit market. And so, just our last speaker was so eloquent about, community organizing and so on. I think we need to just shout about that.
I would love some backup.
And definitely make some noise, because that's something that needs to keep being addressed.
Okay, we're not a dispensary. We actually do, we do gourmet edibles. And we want to legalize these gourmet edibles, but we want to be across the board, where people can order and they can expect a high quality product. So we are trying to establish that domination, pretty much, where we need help focusing on our own business. How would you recommend going about that?
So I would start looking at what people around you have the licenses and the equipment to get you off the ground. It's very expensive to start with nothing there. So people like Diana that have facilities that are there to help new brands, or also if you already have an idea that you're doing at home and you know this is going to be a great product, bringing in people that have done it on a full-scale project and already have connections to the distributor. You also need a distributor to bring it to the retail.
And that's also something, if there's anybody else here in the room, I'm not an expert by any means, but I know a few who want to help us and who are looking to help, like social equity brands, licensing. I can help you with the business plan by starting to contact distributors, manufacturers, making sure that we have the support, because it's not easy. And then also making sure that that's what we want to do, because it's not cheap. So you just want to make sure, and that's I think like the analogy that I always see it as is like a lot of times people looking in just see the money and they see the head person, but sometimes you can put a lot of money in and see no return, on licensing and things like that. So yeah. But there's steps, and I can point you in the right direction from some other Black and brown people who are leading the way in California.
Yeah, there's definitely mentorship out here, as you can see on the stage. I feel like probably any of the women on the stage, if you reached out. The other thing is you really need to vet your business plan well to look at licensing, because you may run into some challenges there with that. I mean, we do have to operate through the system, which makes it uncomfortable in a lot, to put it mildly, in a lot of ways. So, but I know that as you can hear, everyone here has really started from the ground up. So I'm sure we're happy to, I'll speak for everyone, we're happy to share some time and help you.
I think the most amazing thing that I realized about this industry is that everybody's new. Everybody started and didn't know. I, like the women that are up here, be very inspired by the work that they did, especially doing it on their own, because no one knew what to do. There was no plan. There was nothing. And they just did it, and now it is. So remember that.
There's no handbook.
There's no handbook for this.
And follow your dreams. Like, don't let things stop you,
Quick question. First of all, thank you, everybody, for sharing your experience. As we move towards more of a nationally legal model, hopefully, how do you think we will have to pivot here in California from the way we might be doing things with regulations? Do you think there'll be big changes as we move towards other states being legal?
I don't think we're going to have huge changes. I think some of it will be maintaining California's value and seeing how the real value of California cannabis compares to other things. So where California will be really producing a lot, it'll be important for us to maintain that brand type thing.
Yeah, I think when it's first maybe switches over to being federally legalized, you're still going to have the states being able to do their own thing, but you will start to see the interstate commerce happen. So transitioning into being able to do what others do and be able to cross state lines or maybe even go international. So reframing how your business plan works and how your brand operates. And and that'll be huge for us. I mean, right now all we can do is sell in California, which is very limiting, and within the dispensaries or delivery services that exist today, which is also very small. It's about a third of where we thought we would have been 4 years ago. It'll, I think it will be a really positive thing to make it federally, legal, but it also opens it up to, of course, the big corporate, and that's what a lot of people are scared of. But it also allows all of us to be able to expand our business model and really kind of show the rest of the United States what we're all about and what we represent. But it won't go without its own challenges, and California will, of course, continue with its taxation. Each state will, make sure that they're keeping whatever money they can keep in. So, there will be an additional tax as well when it becomes federally legalized. So, it's exciting but daunting, of course, at the same time.
My husband wanted to ask a question, but I had one before him. So I've been a huge advocate, and I've written a lot of letters. What I've always wanted to see and or know is, what would you say for, say, Glass House Farms, Autumn Brands, all of our farms here in Carpinteria? I feel like the anti-cannabis people have just put them into this collective of, oh, they're just, growing marijuana. What's the figure of starting and having a farm and getting past all of everything that you guys have been discussing tonight? Because I don't think that that's ever been put out there. It's not easy, obviously. And so what's the actual figure that you can give all of us so that we can, relatively understand that it's not, between all of the taxes and everything and payroll, and you don't have a credit card and you can't get loans from the bank, like, what's the figure that you guys have to get past in order to make a farm legitimate and legal and all of those different elements that you're dealing with? What is that figure that we have to get past in order to be legal and okay in this community? Because I really feel like that needs to be put out there for all of the people that continue to object and they have no idea what you guys are dealing with.
I got very teary-eyed in that one. It's tremendous. It's been a tremendous, it is not for the faint at heart. It is a lot. You got me. Oh my goodness. I know. We started in the medicinal, collective model days, and really learned how we went. I mean, there wasn't, like we talked about, there wasn't a script, there wasn't a SOP in place. So we just had to figure out how to get there. And, but we made sure we were at the forefront, and we were at the state legislature and really, speaking, what needed to occur. And then we were at every single public hearing and fighting, for this opportunity. And it's, being in a new industry, being women in a new industry, I've always said there's no glass ceiling, and I think, though, there was probably 35% were women when we started, and maybe it's down to 20%, so it's definitely diminishing. But, going through and jumping through all the hoops and fighting to be a cultivator, fighting to be in a dispensary owner, fighting to be a manufacturer, that takes you, they tell you it's going to take 3 months. It takes 2.5, 3 years, 18 months. And it's the money that you have to put into it is tremendous. And you think all this hard work, it's like, okay, next month I'm gonna get that paycheck. It's gonna pay off. And it's just year after year of really putting, blood, sweat, and tears into everything that you do. But we believe in this plant. This plant is incredible. This plant helps so many people. This industry is is, we're at the forefront of a new industry. And for that, it's spectacular. It's worth it. It's so rewarding. I have 2 children. I have a 6-year-old and a 2-year-old, and it is the hardest thing I've ever done, but it is also the most rewarding thing, and so is this business. It's the same thing. It's every day is so hard, and you're just like, can I keep going? And you're like, yes. It's tomorrow's a new day, and I am very grateful for this industry. I'm very grateful for this company. I'm very grateful for my partners. I'm very grateful to be part of a community of women, and in this industry, and that just continues to build each other up. So yes, this is very hard, and thank you. And the anti-cannabis groups, that was last year for me, being president of Carp Growers was one of the hardest things I've probably also ever done, and really negotiating and communicating and figuring out a way to work together and helping them understand that we're not, we're business people. We're not the cartel. We're here to create a living for our families and for our children and for the next generation, and to really help promote this incredible plant. So.
We have one last question.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Grant. I just wanted to ask a question, maybe a couple questions. So I think in this world today, we were all educated that alcohol was okay. And I don't think we're educated, but we were grown that alcohol was okay. Weed was the devil's weed. So everyone thinks that weed is horrible. Is there a way that we can, I don't want to educate people, but is there a way we could make weed be more acceptable like alcohol was?
Well, that is what we are trying to do every day, is really enlightening people about educating people so they know all of the information and they can make the best choices for themselves. But I think especially as women, it's like, and as business people, it's like we're upstanding members of the community and really care about the economic health and wealth. And so, it's definitely a huge stigma to overcome. And even, it's a challenge, period. As a business person, there hadn't been for a long time, I didn't even let anyone know that that's what I did. So it's amazing to where we are. I'm sure you guys feel the same, in that we can actually say what we do. So I can tell you that it's definitely moving forward. It doesn't seem fast enough sometimes, and I completely agree with you. So I think you can just keep talking about it like we are, and that's really going to make the difference.
Well, okay. Well, council member. Okay, one more question.
First of all, I'd like to thank everyone for being here this evening, and Cannabis by the Sea for sponsoring tonight's discussion, and Alcazar, and all the women of change. It's clear to me that there's 6 incredible women up here, not just in the cannabis business, but just incredible women. And my question was already partially answered, but I'm going to ask it again. In Carpinteria, what are your feelings on a dispensary in the city limits, and what area would you put it? Carpinteria is a small community, and it'd be a difficult decision, I think, to decide where it would go, but I'd just like to hear your thoughts and your feelings.
I think cannabis is a very important part of our community. There are so many people in our community that work in it and are inspired of different aspects, from growing to final sale to health and wellness. So I think definitely needs to be a part of our city limits. Inside of that area, and finding the right location needs to come from the community, and having open discussion with the people that need to get to this product and not drive to Santa Barbara every single time, or to Port Hueneme, or to Ojai.
I, for one, would love a space with some social equity rights moving into the space. I would, seeing other like Black-owned dispensaries in LA and up in the Bay, it's been absolutely mind-blowing to see a space that was purposefully curated for me and purposefully curated for the community. And I think that a place like Carpinteria, because y'all grow, we grow so much weed here, giving the community an opportunity to buy and to purchase local bud and to be able to create a wheelhouse of give back, through a dispensary and through local weed. I think that Carpinteria deserves that space. This is agricultural land. If it wasn't weed, y'all be growing something. So I think a brick and mortar would be really cool to see here, but it's a small space and compliance and all that stuff. So we talk about that later.
Well, I second what Hannah said. I think the community needs to come together and really kind of make that decision, but I certainly don't think it needs to be hidden in some little side street or something. It should certainly be part of Carpinteria and be proud, of the cultivation that we have in Carpinteria and what we represent and the sustainability that we produce as growers in this community and the changes that we've made. And I think that should also be at the forefront of within the city limits of Carpinteria and being able to showcase the brands and that grow, farms that are pesticide free, they're sustainable, and that should be part of the city of Carpinteria. I was born in a house on Shepherd Mesa Lane. I didn't actually get to grow up in Carpinteria, but Carpinteria is fully a part of my heart, and I get to work here and be part of this. So I look forward to one day being able to also, people could come and really come and buy our product in Carpinteria.
How do you decide who would open this dispensary?
Sorry, say it again?
How would you decide who would open it and run it?
It goes through a whole licensing.
It's kind of a beauty pageant.
Yeah.
So you go through a whole application process that you write. The license is attached to a certain premise. So the first thing to do is to find the location. And then you write an application, and it's probably about 150 pages, covers everything, and then those get voted on and through different tiers, and then graded and selected. And typically the top choice has the most points and is invited to proceed in the process. By no means guaranteed that you're going to be able to open those doors, but that's typically how it works, at least in Santa Barbara County.
I think it would be great to see, so you can realize more of that tax money and you can really get like farm direct flower and actually get the cannabis that's growing, that's like right across the street. And I think the one thing is, again, it's the stigma, and I know terpenes are a big issue in Carp, and I just want to say that I think people need to understand that that's the smell of money, and we kind of need to change that stigma, so. On that note, I encourage people to purchase female-owned brands. I know we're going to and support all of these women and women companies who are doing this in the space. I know we're going to showcase a list of some of the brands, so we really encourage you to do that. And thank you so much for attending this evening.
I'd like to thank our panel again for coming out tonight. Liz, you did a fabulous job. I'm sure if you still have questions, our panelists will be up here for a while. And then I really see, Councilman Carty, that maybe now's the time to kind of get our group together and talk about a Carpinteria ordinance and look into where a dispensary could be possible, because if not here, where? Thank you all. Thank you.